this is Mike from the One Stop Co-op Shop with a playthrough of a game on Kickstarter that I'm super excited about, Uprising: Curse of the Last Emperor. Uprising is a fully soloable or cooperative 4X fantasy game. So you'll be exploring, building up your empire, having great battles. It's pretty awesome, so I'm going to walk you through the basics of play and play through at least a few chapters. We'll see how long it goes. Maybe we'll get through 3 or even all 4. And just to remind you, we never receive compensation for our Kickstarter coverage. We just want to help you make an informed choice about the game. And if you like what you see here at the One Stop Co-op Shop, consider subscribing, listening to our podcast every Sunday, joining the conversation in our Slack or Discord groups, or supporting us through Patreon. So to give you a quick idea of the theme in Uprising, the last emperor of this evil empire that had basically enslaved this fantasy world in trying to keep his own power has summoned this horrible chaos plague of undead. And you control formerly enslaved factions trying to both kick off the last remnants of the empire while also holding off the forces of the undead long enough for the druids, the former kind of mystic masters of the world, to end the plague of undead and kind of close the gates and push them back so you can have a happier world. Now, I'm not going to do a full section on setup and how to play, but I'm going to explain some of the basic elements of the game. If you want to skip straight to the playthrough, use the timestamps. But in pure gameplay turns, each of the factions in the game, you can play with 2 to 4, either solo or co-op, will start on a home hex. You can see the 2 I have in play here. And legions of the Empire will be coming out of the capital, which is always in the center, and forces of chaos, the undead plague, will be coming from the outside, from this frozen wasteland surrounding you. And in terms of winning or losing, you can play between 2 and 4 chapters. You decide how long you want the game to go. And at the end of your chosen game length, you're going to compare victory points. And the key is that every single one of your factions have to be in front of both Chaos and the Imperial forces. So you can't have one straggler way behind. You have to all kind of help each other keep up as you fight off both factions trying to destroy you. Now, as you can see, the board is made up of these randomized hexes, and there are a ton I didn't use, so lots of variety here. And the main way the players earn victory points is by destroying the enemy forces and also getting their own havens down. They get victory points every round for those. Whereas both the Imperials and Chaos gain victory points for basically spreading their forces out, keeping their big leaders in play, and killing you. So as I already said, you have all of these hexes, and most of them start out unexplored. Only your home tiles and the center capital one are explored, plus all of this ice terrain around you. You can move through that, and that also counts as explored. You also start out with some starting enemy forces. You've got curses next to each of your home tiles. Those are the forces of chaos, basically preventing you from building and giving victory points every turn. You've also got a few skeletons next to these special face-down tiles, which are sea towers. And you've got a single fortification here on the capital. I'm playing on normal difficulty because I'm not good enough at the game yet to play higher, but you would have more forces if you chose a tougher difficulty setting. Now, a quick but important thing to note, I have a neoprene mat that they sent me, but everything here is super prototyped. Things could change. They've literally painted some of these pieces, so don't think this is exactly what you're going to get. In the actual game, you've got a board for the main board here, and then separate sideboards that you can choose to use or not. They organize everything beautifully, but if you don't have a big enough table, mine's definitely straining to contain it all, you could just take these away. And you'll see that I'm not using the sideboards in their sort of correct configuration. I've laid out the cards and things so you can see them better and I can film more easily. So to kind of zoom in on this stuff, you have 3 quests at the beginning of each chapter. These are going to give you cool options for your heroes to do things to improve your position. You've got 3 items always available you can buy. And again, you're going to choose up to 4 chapters to go through. I right now have it set up for 4, but I might again only play through 2. We'll see how long it's going. And you've also got these druid cards that are going to give you more and more cool magical powers to pull upon as you go further into the game. Now, one of the biggest things is choosing which faction you'll have. Again, I have 2 in play. The red ones are kind of like these orcish guys that love pillaging. And the blue faction are sort of like the original settlers of this land, these tough survivalists. But you've got at least 2 other factions to choose from, and they are quite different in a lot of ways, and I think the designers are working on even more. You can kind of see here they each have a unique set of standees with different abilities. They've each got 2 different heroes. I've randomly selected one for each faction. And each hero has their own deck of abilities, including generally 2 starting abilities. And by the way, the factions were chosen by our Patreon patrons, so thanks for helping me decide. Each of our leaders has 8 little action gems. You'll see how those work very quickly as we start playing the game. Also, each faction begins the game with 5 of each resource. You've got Crystal, which is kind of like the currency of the world, used to buy items and a lot of units. Food, which is this elephant symbol, which is used to march around the board. And Plunder, which is used to construct new havens, mainly. Now, there's a lot more to talk about. We haven't even gotten into those terrible enemy cards that you can kind of glimpse to the right over there. But the game has some really nice organization of phases, so I'm going to go through them one by one, and I'll explain key concepts as we reach them. So first, for each of the 2 to 4 chapters you play, it's going to start with a refresh phase. You'll first reveal your first Druid card, and these can be used in combat when you roll a lightning bolt symbol, and it'll tell you whether it can be used in ranged or melee combat, in this case both. And it'll tell you what it does. In this case, it'll get us extra resources for lightning bolts that we roll. Next, if our heroes had flipped some cards to use their once per chapter ability, everything would get unflipped. We would also get all of our action points back, but clearly we have all that stuff. We would also reveal 3 new items and 3 new quests, discarding any remnants, but that's all set up. The first refresh phase is pretty quick. And then we pass the first player token. For now, we're saying it's the blue faction. And then we get into where things get dicey, the first event phase. So technically the first thing that happens in the event phase is any existing legions or hordes, which are like kind of the big boss monsters of the game, level up. But since we don't have any of those yet, we're going to reveal our first event. Hunger and despair turned innocent survivors into bands of robbers and thieves that roam the land. Your followers are doubling their efforts to protect your haven from this threat. And in the sky there were flickering lights behind the clouds at night, and the moon was blood red. So chapter cards, as you can see, tend to have a positive effect at the top and then a negative effect, which will usually spawn those big bosses I talked about at the bottom. So here we each get to place a wall and tower on our starting haven. So these are pretty fun. Although the units are standees, they've got miniatures that kind of get built up. Now, these won't be painted like this. I'm assuming they'll all be kind of similar plastic color. But yeah, so there's a tower and a wall, little defensive structures to help me fight at my base. Okay, now the negative part, we're going to place a horde at threat 4. You'll see what that means in a second. In Howling White, not adjacent to a haven, and another horde at threat 4 in the Screaming Sea, not adjacent to a haven. So it's kind of hard to see from this far vantage point, but the board is divided into 3 regions. You've got Howling White in the bottom left, Foggrave in the bottom right, and Screaming Sea at the top. So we're going to put one horde somewhere in here, not next to a haven, and the other somewhere up here. So each time you spawn a horde, you draw one of these big cards. It has an initiative value. Lower means they go first. An immediate effect, so wherever the counter of omens is spawned, we're going to put 2 skeletons in his hex. Those are kind of like the grunt soldiers of the horde. Those are kind of like the grunt soldiers of chaos. He's got his own special lightning ability. And then a key thing, he's got his threat track. Remember, it said he's going to start at threat 4. We mark that with a little slider, and it tells us how many dice he'll roll in range combat, and how many and of what color dice he'll roll in melee combat, so he's pretty tough. And finally, what we get for killing him, if we destroy him, we place 2 skeletons where we killed him, and we gain 2 victory points, which I'll say is pretty low for one of these guys. And here's an example of one of these huge standees. Now, these are wood, so not really indicative of what the actual game will look like, but still, they're awesome. So I could put him anywhere in Howling White, but I actually kind of like him being somewhat close to our base so that we can come out and attack him if we need to. And with his power, he puts 2 skeletons in his space. You would have to fight them before you fought him if you went in there. And the big nasty thing about skeletons is if you ever have to place a 3rd in a space, instead they all go away and you get a new horde, just like this guy. And our second horde is the Bloodworm. You immediately place a curse in a hex with no X on it. Remember, curses give chaos points every chapter and also make it impossible to build there. Now this guy gets you 4 victory points when you kill him, but look, he's got all red dice, which are one of the nastier colors, so he is a monster. And here he is, look, he's happy to see us. And I think for him, I'll put him over here for the Screaming Sea. Then I have to put down a curse. I want it to be somewhere where I probably won't build anyway. I can't pick any of these icy hexes. They have an X on them. So what the hey, let's put it next to the capital. I don't think that will affect me too much. Finally, we put activation tokens on each of our hordes and legions, which is the imperial equivalent. And these basically show how many times they'll move, generally trying to attack either me or the other enemy faction. So they each only get one at first, but they can gain more from a lot of effects. Alright, now we get to the hero choices with the build phase. Again, you'll note that we have 2 feats, which are character-specific skills that we start with. For Baranth the Wall, he's got Younglings that lets him level up his Younglings into Oathsworn after a battle. And he's got Phalanx that lets him get extra defense in combat. But during each build phase, you level up again, you get 2 random feats, and you pick one of them, the other one goes on the bottom of your deck. So for Baranth, I can either pick a questing-focused one or a combat-focused one. Glory lets me flip it, which means I can use it once per chapter. I lose a shield result that will block enemy damage, but I gain a lightning bolt, which remember lets us use our druid powers. But I don't love that druid power, so I think I like Astute better. The quest that you can do as your hero will have little things you have to get on your dice to complete them. And then you will have little rewards down here, and this lets me gain a quest reward twice. And actually, I could even pick one that I didn't succeed at. So if I got a shield, I could still get a victory point here, this little diamond symbol. So I like that one. So maybe we'll make Baranth my more quest-focused guy. And then Khal, the Destroyer, gets to do the same thing. He starts out with a unit special ability. Each faction has these, so if he has multiple wargs, they get to do ranged combat bonuses. They just rush in with bows. And one of my favorites, Pillage. Anytime he wins a combat, he has a unit left after combat, he gets 2 free resources, so he just loots his foes. Let's see what his choices are. He's got Marauders. Whenever he uses the trade action, which uses up one of your 8 action points, you would normally get a free salt, but he can get free food. Or instead, Leadership. I get +1 Leadership, which will help me in questing and anything else that asks me to roll my hero dice. And I also get 3 resources immediately. I'm going to go with that. I love the idea of having more resources to fight some of these bad guys right off the bat. Now, which 3 resources? Well, let's go back to Baranth and see what units he wants to build, and then when we get to Khal, we can decide which ones. So they're kind of covered up by the standees, but let me talk you through our unit choices. So each faction has 4 units plus walls and towers. Those are consistently the same. And each of them has a cost, so for these guys, they're kind of flexible. You can spend 2 salt or 2 plunder to buy either their basic ranged or melee unit. And this shows which phases they can fight in, so only Spear Singers can do range for this entire faction. It also shows what type of die they give you. White is generally the weakest, blue is kind of focused on defense, red does a lot of damage, and black is by far the strongest, does a ton of damage. Now, a key thing to consider as you build your first units, you need food to move your units into combat. So you want to keep generally at least a couple of those. And you need 2 or 3 plunder to build a new haven, and generally speaking, you want to build at least 1 new haven every chapter, or you'll just fall behind on victory points. So based on that, I'm going to spend 4 salt and 2 plunder to get 3 of my basic units. And since I can upgrade one of these guys per chapter into my stronger Oathsworn, I'm going to get 2 of them and just 1 ranged unit. And they have to go right on one of your havens. You can only have 5 units in a space, but you don't count as a unit. Meanwhile, for our friend Khal, he's got Battle Trolls, Warg Riders, Deadeye Archers, and Tribesmen. And you'll note that his Tribesmen roll an orange die, which I find is generally not as good as a blue die, but they only cost 1 food, so you can really go crazy with them. Now, he's got the same 5, 5, and 5 as the other faction, but he gets +3 from the leadership level up feat he got. So I think I will get 1 Warg, and that's 3 salt and 2 food. Let's get the last of our 2 salt for our first archer. Then we can spend the last 3 of our food to get 3 tribesmen, have the max 5 units. And that wipes out all of our crystal and food. So for my bonus, I'm going to get 1 crystal and 2 food to start. Alright, and with that, we're ready to get into the action phase, the meat of the game. And we're going to alternate our players taking actions until all of them have used all 8 of their actions. To mark using an action, you just move the gem onto the type of action you want to take. But the key thing is you can spend as many gems to move as you want. That's moving your hero, by the way. And then do one other action type if you want to before passing the turn on to another player. So I'll explain the basic actions as I do them. So generally speaking, both of us want to explore one of the hexes adjacent to us and build a new haven, although probably not next to the capital. So I'm going to have Baranth move 1. That's 1 gem. And then we'll take another one of the basic actions, Explore, which means flipping over a face-down hex. So we found Black Ice. First it says we immediately gain 2 crystal. Generally, hexes will tell you what they will produce for you and give you on the back. Then it says if empty, place 1 skeleton here. There were no skeletons or garrisons, so that happens. If not, reinforced. That means if there was already a skeleton here, you'd add another one. If there was already a garrison, you'd upgrade it. Then we have to place 1 skeleton with other skeletons Ooh, and then place 1 activation token on a Legion or Horde card with the least tokens. So I don't want to reinforce that skeleton, so let's place that one with a friend. And then here's the really nasty part. I have to choose one of these guys to activate twice instead of once. As nasty as the Bloodworm is, I don't like that the counter of Omens is guarded by skeletons right now, so I think I'm going to double activate him, and I'm going to try to kill him. Maybe we can both kind of team up on him. So Branth moved and explored, which is a non-move action, so his turn is done. He's used up 2 of his 8. But something quick to note about hexes. First, each has a terrain type. In this case, this is Ice Waste, which doesn't do anything for combat. And then each also has their resource generation if you build a haven here. So we'll get 2 salt per turn if we build here. All right, Call's going to do something similar, but he's going to be a little more aggressive. He's going to come over to the Blood Worm, so he'll move and explore 2 actions. And he's also getting 2 salt, but oh my gosh, if empty, place 2 skeletons here, if not reinforce, and then place 2 skeletons with other skeletons? And do not forget, if we get 3 skeletons, that's a whole another horde spawning. So that was a nasty one to pull. I've got a lonely skeleton here I can place 1 with. And then unfortunately, the only other singleton skeleton is on Baranth's space, so he's got a tougher combat ahead of him than I planned. And speaking of Baranth, it's his turn to do something. And I think he might want to improve his odds in the combat that just showed up for him. So he's going to spend 1 action where he is to take another basic action, the market action. This basically means we can buy 1 of the 3 available items, but you can only buy items that your character is qualified to use. You'll see this one requires 2 leadership. And happily, Baranth has 3, more than enough. So he's going to spend 2 of his salt, the 2 he just got, to buy the Whip of Thorns. This means it can only be used in melee, kind of like the Druid ability you saw earlier. I can pay 2 elephants, 2 food, to gain either 1 skull, which is damage, or 1 shield, which blocks damage, before damage once per round if my hero is in the hex where combat is happening. And with Baranth not having spent a single one of his elephants yet, I think that might get used. And whenever you buy an item, you replace it immediately. Here we've got Ice Water Pipe that lets you reroll dice outside of combat, like when you're questing. And hey, Call got in the leadership game. He's up to 2 leadership with the feat he gained. So let's have him do a market ability too. And he'll also spend 2 salt to gain the Censor of Shadows. After a combat is finished, that's what this little grave symbol means, he can place 1 of his basic units destroyed on 1 of his havens. So he'll get to save 1 of his guys after combat. Actually, you know what? I feel dumb. Let's give Call the whip, since he gains more elephants, more food from his production. And we'll give Baranth the Censor, since he has fewer units. He might want to save them. And it is back to Baranth. He's got 5 actions left. He could spend 1 to pool all adjacent units he wants into a hex to fight. But first we can look at our 3 quests, because another action is to take a quest. The Tuatan allies help us fight on Marsh. We haven't found any Marsh hexes yet. The Forest Spirit lets us get rid of a curse for 5 resources. That's way too expensive early in the game. And finally, the Nethersea Navigators let us get extra resources. That's not bad. But if we're on a Sea Tower hex, we get a bonus die to resolve it, so I think I'd rather wait until I get 1 more space. So Baranth will choose a command action. Time to see how combat works. So to do a command action, you do have to spend 1 food. You pick an explored hex, has to be explored, and you can pull in up to 5 units and or your hero into that hex. So for example, if I'd been over here, and some of these guys were over here, they could all rush in, and we are going to do that. So here's how combat works. First, you have a single archery round. And everyone with range capability, here it's only my Spear Singer, gets to roll the indicated colored die. Skulls means the opponent has to remove 1 unit. Shields block a skull. Then we go into clash after clash after clash round, where we just roll all of our dice. That includes range units. And we play until at least one side has lost all of their units. So let's do my range combat first. And I got lucky. The shield doesn't matter because they aren't doing range combat. It doesn't stick around. But we do get to kill 1 of the skeletons right away. And now we go into the clash round. So the skeleton is going to roll 1 red die. And my younglings are going to give me blue dice. My Spear Singer is going to give me white. My hero doesn't give me dice unless he has like a weapon that does. And alright, this is perfect. Our blue shield blocks the skeleton's attack. And our skull defeats him. Now, very important detail, whenever you defeat a single skeleton or 1 level of garrison, you get 1 victory point, so blue is up to 2 victory points. And then also we want to check for end of combat abilities. I didn't lose any units, and I don't need my Censor, but I did have at least 1 youngling survive the battle, so I flip this, can't use it again for the chapter. And that youngling now becomes an Oathsworn, rolling the same stronger red die that the skeleton did. Alright, let's see if Call can make the same thing happen. He's spending an elephant. And he's bringing everybody into this combat. Again, terrain can have a major effect on combat, but we're in Ice Waste right now, so it doesn't do anything. Okay, we have a single white range die. Got the same result. Gosh, we're lucky. Then we've got a bunch of dice, and he just has the one red. So we're definitely going to kill him, but no blocks. And he does defeat one of our people. Now, again, I wish I'd switched the items back. So we'll get rid of one of our cheap tribesmen. And he does not go back to our supply, at least not yet. Instead, he goes into the Chaos Graveyard. And basically, for each player's units represented here at the end of each chapter, that faction's going to gain 2 victory points. All right, so red also gains 2. And they have the Pillage ability, so they're going to gain 2 resources of their choice. And we're going to make them both food, so we can start using that Whip of Thorns. All right, time for Brant's 5th action. He's going to take the Haven action. Your hero has to be on an explored hex with no enemies, and you need to spend 2 plunder for this faction. The red faction needs to spend 3. And this lets you remove your leftmost haven and place it on the hex. And note that this will increase your resource generation each round. You use the rightmost revealed space. Now, Kull has got a bit of a tough choice. He can build a haven here, but then the Bloodworm he's going to activate twice could destroy his haven and then destroy his other one and just leave him homeless. He could instead retreat his forces back and wait for the Bloodworm to come to him. Now, the negative is each time these guys move, they leave a curse behind, which again generates resources over and over again. That would give him both the tower and the walls to roll extra dice against the Bloodworm, which could be the thing that decides between victory and defeat. Yeah, I kind of hate to do this. I'm going to come up here and explore first. So that's 1 to move, 1 to explore. Okay, we've got Dunkelholm. I'm going to gain 2 plunder. We'll remove any skeletons here and place 2 garrisons. That's the Imperial's basic unit. Then we each draw a feat and discard a feat, so we can replace one of our starting ones. And note that some hexes will have these symbols on some of their hex sides. That means that only heroes can walk through there, otherwise they're impassable. And that's actually great, because I can now consider building a haven here, and I've blocked it off so the Empire won't be able to come in easily and attack me. But of course, to do that, first I'd have to beat the garrison. Level 1 garrisons are these little miniatures. Level 2s go on top. They have a tower for the 3rd one. And they tend to be a little bit weaker in melee combat, but they have better range. And this forest terrain we ended up in gives ranged attacks a reroll, even worse for us. All right, back to Baranth. He has 3 actions left, so let's move and explore with him as well. Okay, we've got Z-Guard. So, big thing about C-Tower hexes is, if you're on them, you count as adjacent to everywhere, so you can basically teleport from them. So we're going to remove any skeletons here and place 3 garrisons. Oh, that's super, super tough to fight. But I guess I'll open it up to my units in case I want to attack in there. So here it is, by the way, the terrible glory of a level 3 garrison. And I was thinking I'd use my last action to move in there and attack that, but that seems a little foolish now. Speaking of final actions, Kull is down to 1. He's going to use his first one to command everybody back to his haven. And that again will cost him a food. So this is a rough beginning for the red player. In retrospect, maybe he should have gone away from the Chaos Horde and then kind of waited for them to come. I don't know, it's a tough call. Now, there's only 2 action types you haven't seen, and we're going to do one of the last ones with Baranth. And that is the one I mentioned earlier, the quest action. So Baranth takes his hero dice. In this case, he has 1 red and 3 blue. If you have Guile, you can pick either white or orange, depending on what you want. And the quest will give you a way to get a bonus. In this case, I get a purple because I'm on a sea tower. And I'm looking for shields, lightning bolt, or skulls. I need to get at least this many to complete each of these options. And in this case, to successfully solve the quest, I need to do at least 1 of these successfully. That looks pretty good. I got 3 shields, 1 lightning bolt, 1 skull. So I got 2 of these, and they each have rewards. I may draw a new quest, and I may discard any items from the market. Then it says each player gains 1 resource for each shield and lightning bolt you rolled. Oh my gosh. So we're each getting 4 resources of our choice? And don't forget, Baranth, when he solves a quest, can gain a goal a second time. I'm going to use the option to discard the market cards again if I don't like the new items that come up. Because the big thing I'm thinking is Kull can get some awesome item for his last action to help him with the 4 resources he just got. So I will discard all 3 of these. I get a Moyar Pirate. I can lose 2 victory points to gain 6 resources. Ard Warpaint, a 1-time action to discard it and gain a purple in melee combat. And a Healing Potion, discard it to place one of my units destroyed here on one of my havens. I don't love either of those. Yeah, let's use his feat to draw again. Dragon Fruits. Gain 5 elephants. Each other player gains 2. And it costs 3 crystal. Ooh, I could get a ton of food for his whip. Horn of Yore. My command actions pay no food, but I don't have 2 guile. Neither of my guys does. Then Orb of Storms. A 1-time move of a horde or legion, but we don't have magic either. So the only one we can actually get is Dragon Fruits. Alright, Brant's going to take his bonus from the quest in half food, half crystal. And Kull is going to do the same, but for a specific reason. And that's because for his final market action, he's going to get the dragon fruits. So it'll cost him 3 crystal, but he gains 5 food, Baranth gains 2, and that means he can use his whip for days. Now we do replace the item, although it's going to go away in a second. And it's fine because it's a magic item that neither of us can use. And the Nether Sea Navigators is also going to give us a new quest, but again, we're not even going to worry about it. You know, I thought I would get to show you the final action type, which is trading. You can basically spend 1 action to get Assault whenever you want, even when you're recruiting units at the beginning of the round. But it didn't happen. So with both players out of actions, our Hordes and Legions activate. And it goes from lowest to highest, so Counter of Omens will be first. And they have several rules for how they move. Basically, they'll try to attack a haven first. If they can't do that, they'll try to attack enemy units that are next to them, the weakest ones. If they can't do that, they'll try to go to an empty hex, which means not even one with a curse. And if they can't do any of that, they'll just try to move in towards the capital. And the key thing is they'll never go further away from the capital. Whenever they move, they leave a curse behind, which is terrible. I'm going to have him come towards blue so we can try to kill him next round. And the Bloodworm activates second. He's going twice. I can choose to have him go here first. It fits all his criteria. That way I leave the Grim Fangs as something I could populate later. And then he'll come in here to attack us. Now this terrain is a Highlands Hex, which means range combat is cut down to 1. I have 1 white die for my Surviving Spear Singer and 1 from my tower for range combat, so I'll only roll 1 white. But the Bloodworm would have rolled 2 red, so he's down to 1 red. I think that's probably a good trade. All right, let's see how we do. Okay, I got a shield I didn't need, and he missed, which almost never happens with red, so that was pretty lucky. Okay, now he's got 4 red. Every damage I do to him will lower his threat by 1, and you see he gets weaker and weaker. And then I have a lot of dice, although they tend to be weaker. A white from a tower, a white from my Deadeye, 2 orange from my Tribesmen, a red from my Warg Rider, and a blue from my Walls. Okay, here we go. All right, so we got 2 shields and 2 skulls. A lot of misses there, though. And wow, he rolled terribly. What is going on? I won't complain, though. So he doesn't hurt me at all. And I hit him twice? Man, if I was rolling like this, I should have just gone into his space. So he's only rolling at 2 red now. And actually, you know what? Since it might save one of my units, I'll go ahead and use my Whip of Thorns. Before I apply the damage, I'll pay 2 elephants and do an extra damage to him. So that puts him down to 1, rolling only 1 red die. And I bet I'll be able to block it with my whites and my blues. Okay, he rolled better there. A 2. And I will kill him, but only a single shield. Well, and here's the thing. I could spend 2 elephants to save one of my guys, or I could just build him for 1 elephant later. So let's get rid of this guy. So the Bloodworm is defeated. He's out of the game entirely, and I gain 4 victory points for red. That does put red up to 6, which is good, because he didn't get a second haven this round. Alright, now we gain our production. Each player gains the resources shown on the hexes they have havens in, as well as the resources shown on their rightmost exposed former haven spot. So blue's getting 4 salt, 5 plunder, 2 elephants, nice. And red is only their basic place, which is 1 of each, plus this, so that's 2 salt, 1 plunder, 4 elephants. But let's not forget their pillage ability. They want a battle. They're going to get 2 more salt. Alright, now we get to do scoring. The Empire gets 1 victory point for every hex with any level of garrison. So 1, 2, 3. They also get 1 for each of their legions alive, and 2 for each faction in their graveyard, which is none. So they just have 3, but they tend to be slow starters. Chaos is the one that's going to hurt. They get 1 for every curse, and yikes, they have 6. 1 for each horde still in play, so that brings them up to 7. And then 2 for each faction in their graveyard, which is just red, so that gets them to 9. Finally, we get 2 victory points for each haven we have, and 1 for special hexes, which is generally the home hexes here. We can also spend 5 resources apiece for 1 victory point for either of us to kind of shore up weaknesses, but I usually wait till the end of the game to do that. So to show you the relative standings, red ties Chaos at 9, and blue with 2 havens plus their bonus gets up to 7, but they have a monster right next to them they can go fight. So not a terrible first result. My main worry is building up my red units with only 1 haven to place them on. That's going to really hurt for Chapter 2. And speaking of Chapter 2, it's here! The game actually moves really quickly, even though it's a big 4X thing. So we reveal a new druid, but our old one stays around. Ooh, we can take away their victory points? That's great. All of our flipped cards come back, which is just Baranth's upgrade youngling ability. We clear off all of our action points. And we get a whole new crop of quest cards and items. And red now becomes the first player, so they'll act first. Now we get to the nasty stuff, drawing our next event. But first, any existing hordes and legions get 2 threat, and if they would go above 7, that just gives their side victory points. For days, an eclipse of the sun has darkened the islands, and the survivors are huddling even closer in their poorly defended shelters. While the gaze of the survivors turned to the sky in fear, the steps of the Legionnaires echoed through the capital in unison. Alright, so pretty nasty effect on the top this time. We're going to place one garrison on every hex that already has a garrison. Then we have to flip one unexplored hex and resolve its effects. So the capital will become a level 2, this one will become a level 3. And if you can't place one like we can't here, you can put it on an empty hex. We'll do that, I guess. Okay, then we're getting 2 legions at the capital. Let's see what the Empire has to offer us. So first we have the Assassin. So we place her target. I'll explain what that means in a second. Then that player flips her starting feat, so we can't use him this round. We place 1 activation token on her card, so she's going to move twice automatically. And her archery is pretty nasty. Now, how our targets work is you pick a player without a target, and they put the target token on their haven with the fewest units, which is my starting one. And basically that's where she's going to try to head whenever she's not quite sure which way to go. And she does immediately activate. So she puts a 3rd garrison on the capital, kind of like Chaos leaves the curses behind. Then she moves closer to her target. First she wants to go to a haven, she can't do that. Then hex with the fewest enemy units, can't do that. Then an empty hex, there she is. And then any other hex. Now since she always wants to get closer to her target, the next time she moves at the end of the round, if I haven't killed her, she will attack my base with walls and towers, so that kind of works out well for me. I think what I'm probably going to try to do is kill the Counter of Omens and then let the Assassin come in, or maybe vice versa, I'm not sure yet. Okay, and second we have the Empress. She places her target, which now has to be the red player. And then she takes 2 Druid cards. Oh, weird. So now she has taken both of my revealed Druids, and they are unusable until we kill her. And she gives us 0 victory points for defeating her? What the heck? By the way, her target is, of course, my only haven for red. And with that being blocked off, she's basically going to go to either one of those empty spaces, but she's not activating yet. Oh wait, I'm sorry. The Assassin gets 2 activation tokens. She doesn't activate immediately, so she's still on the capital. And the Counter of Omen gets 1. And by the way, you might be wondering what happens if I get a 3rd Legion. They actually put their target on the capital because they have no player to go toward, and they just sit there getting the Empire victory points every turn. Alright, it is build phase time. I should probably make change, but we'll just buy a lot of stuff to use it. Baranth can get Ashen Forge, make all his younglings cost less. That sounds great. Or +1 white and 3 more resources. I'd rather have that. Now, he's got 3 guys left over from last round, but he can fit 5 on each haven, so he can build 7 more. So let's see, getting all 4 of my younglings with their new reduced costs would still leave me with enough to build a new haven this round. I can certainly get both of my leftover Spear Singers for 4 salt. We got room for 1 more? Let's go big elephant, baby, because I'm going to get an Oathsworn for free after a combat, hopefully. So I used up just about all my salt and 3 of my food. Now I do want to kind of plan my turn out. I think I'm going to come back, try to kill the Counter of Omens, get a 3rd haven there, and then have some units waiting for when the Assassin charges in. So with that in mind, let's have my big boy and some guards in the first hex, and then my reinforcements will be my kind of weaker people. Meanwhile, Call has a lot of resources too. Let's see, he can clash, he can lose 1 skull he rolled to get a lightning bolt, but with all of the druids gone, all a lightning bolt can do is cancel a shield. I did forget to say that, but still not that great. Or discard this, so it's 1 use, but to roll the dice of your units that were destroyed here this round. Oh, yeah, so I think I'm going to take that one. In case I get some horrible roll against me, I can just smash them right back with a double attack. And yuck, 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 Call can only fit 2 new units. He still has 3 from last time. So with his wargs giving him bonus archery, I think he has to build another one of them. And then he doesn't have the salt for a regular archer, unfortunately, so he'll just get a tribesman. And his goal this round is to expand. I want to get him on Grim Fangs first, and then you can either come in here or go over there. I think I'd rather do the one I've already explored. So let's have him start off with a move and haven action. Remember, for his faction, that's 3 plunder. But yeah, he's on the board. Meanwhile, I don't think Baranth can afford to fight these guys. I think he has to go right over and prepare for the 2 bosses. But you know what? While you're on a Sea Tower hex, all items cost 1 less crystal. And hey, what the heck? He's strong enough to use this Worm Sickle. And what it does is every melee round, if he rolls 2 or more blanks, he gets a free lightning bolt. It's not going to give him druid powers right now, but it would cancel out a shield of the enemy. So that will cost him 1 market action, but it's free crystal-wise. Alright, coming back over to Call, he's going to use 1 food. This is already explored, so he can move straight in there with all of his units. And they have a guide for the relative strengths of things, so the garrison's rolling 3 white dice in range. Whereas I'm rolling 1 for my archer and 1 orange from my warg special ability. And because we're on the woods, we get to reroll up to 2 ranged dice. The AI will only reroll blanks. So what do they get? Crud, okay, reroll. Awesome, so only 1 block. Let's see if we can still get some damage through. Ooh, I'm not going to reroll anything because I hurt them once. They are down 1 level. That'll be a victory point for me in a second. And that is great because I'd love to have fewer dice here. So they've got a blue, a white, and 2 orange. I've got 2 red, 2 orange, and a white. They get... Ooh, amazing roll. Darn it. 3 attack and 2 defense. See if I can equal it. Oh, I got a ton of attack. That's good. I will kill them, but right now they are wiping out 3 of my guys. Well, it seems like the perfect time to use my whip to get 1 shield. That'll cost me 2 food, of course. Now I can cancel out 1 of their skulls and only lose 2 guys, but I still have 4 skulls versus 2 defense, so they are dead. And for my 2 guys, of course, I'll lose my cheapy little orange ones. Oh, I forgot to say, anybody in the graveyard after you give the victory points to the faction for killing them comes back to your supply. But these guys are going to the Imperial graveyard to give them victory points at the end of the round. And red's up to 12. Blue's lagging behind now. Right, speaking of blue, let's go explore and fight. So don't forget, because he's on a tower hex, he can spend 1 move to go anywhere, so he'll come right to the counter of omen space. And he'll explore there, hopefully it's nothing too horrible. Alright, Stone Circle, gain 2 plunder. If empty, place 2 skeletons here, darn it. And then, each player gains 1 basic unit on a haven or empty explored hex. The good news is that means Call can get a free archer on one of his new havens. The bad news is Baranth has no available basic units because he built them all. I forgot Call's pillage again. Let's get him 2 plunder. Because for his action, he's going to build a haven again, catch him back up. 3 plunder for his 3rd one. Meanwhile, Baranth is commanding his first army in. Let's see how we do. So we have to fight the skeletons in a separate battle before we take on the counter of omens. Alright, so we get 2 white dice of range combat first. See if we can get lucky to take these guys out. And we got 1 skull that rolled off screen there, so 1 zombie's gone. Alright, now we've got all our stuff, including our elephant's black die, and they got a red. And they got 1. Let's try to roll on camera now. Oh, good. We blocked them, and oh my gosh, that is the best side, clearly. 3 damage. Bye-bye, skeleton. Oh, I forgot. I would have gotten a reroll on my archer that missed, but that's okay. So that brings blue to 9 victory points, tied with Chaos. But now we have to fight the counter of Omens, who is upgraded, remember. Yuck. So he's rolling 4 white dice, and remember he can reroll 2 that miss. I'm rolling my same 2. Really don't want this to go terribly. Okay, Karate's rerolling both of those. Oh my god. So I'm definitely not hurting him, and he's got 3 skulls coming at me. Let's try to get some defense. Okay, good. So I blocked 2 of them. I definitely don't hurt him. But I only lose 1 person. Let's get rid of one of my archers now that they're not as important. They got 3 purple, a blue, and an orange. I'm down 1 white die. Okay, let's see what they get. Okay, just 2 skulls and then 2 lightning bolts. The first one he'll use to place 2 skeletons on an empty hex. The second one he'll use to cancel a shield if I have any. Okay, and I do, so 1 is canceled. So right now I'm only taking 1 damage, and I'm doing 2 to him. By the way, I do have my combat abilities, but I didn't roll that many blanks, and I don't really want to get another shield. So I'll just lose my other archer and tank the rest anyway. And he's going down 2, which is great. But he's putting 2 skeletons down, but hey, let's say they'll hang out there to greet the assassin in a second. Thank you. And I'm down to 3 dice. He's still got 5. 3 skulls, not bad. And he also gets 3 skulls. Oh, man. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to use my once per combat ability to change a die to a single shield. Because that'll keep my elephant alive, and maybe I'll get lucky and hit him for like 3 damage in a second. So 2 damage gets through. He's down to 2. And he defeats both of these guys. He's down to just 2 blue and an orange. And, okay. Oh, man. He blocked 1, so what's he got? He's got 1 life left. Are you kidding? Alright, so he's not dead, but my elephant is. But a little bit of a silver lining. I get to place 1 of my destroyed basic units on a haven. So let's go ahead and get one of my spear singers that was killed back. And I've still got a ton of actions to bring these guys in, finish them off, and then wait for the assassin to come. Alright, Call's got 5 actions left, so I guess he might as well set himself up to get another haven. So he'll move and explore. Remember, he can go through impassable terrain. Oof, no free resources. 1 skeleton here. Oh, but then roll my hero dice, and for every skull I roll, I get 1, and everyone else gets 2. That's great, and just 1 skeleton? That's nothing. And interesting, I can block off my defenses even more. Yes, I like that a lot. Okay, so 1 skeleton. We'll kill him soon. Here's Call's hero dice, looking for skulls. That's only 1, so he gets 1 salt, but Baranth gets 2. And speaking of Baranth, he needs all his actions to do what he wants to do. He's going to command into this hex. And he'll bring up his red guy, his other archer, so he has 2 and 2 blue guys. Can't fit the last one yet. I'm sorry, it does cost a food. Call will use one of his last 3 actions to command into here. He can grab that new archer that was spawned. And Baranth thinks it's time for round 2. Another food, commanding in. Let's finish this guy off. So we're tied for archery. We each have 2 white. We each get 2 rerolls if we want them. Counter of Omens definitely does. He's got a shield and a skull. And nice. I already canceled his damage. But nothing on the reroll. So a whole lot of nothing for range, but I'm definitely going to have the advantage in melee. So the counter's down to only 2 blue dice. But I have a red, 2 white, and 2 blue, so this should be over quickly. Okay, he gets decent results. And yes. I'm going to block them all. I can cancel his shield with the lightning bolt. He's super dead. But combat's not done, because if he's destroyed, 2 skeletons go here, and I gain 2 victory points. So let's go right into it. My range attacks, reroll because I'm in the forest. Nice, got 1 of them. And the 1 skeleton, nothing. And I didn't roll too well either, but he's still dead. So much better than last time. And now finally I can flip this and change one of my younglings into another Oathsworn. And that's 2 more victory points. I just jumped ahead of red. Our call is going crazy. Let's command. Roar. So Icy Waste, no terrain effect. Which means this guy just has to sit there and take my 2 white and orange from my Warg bonus in ranged attack. Yes, he is dead. And this is crazy. I'm getting 2 plunder, which will let him build another haven. So he'll have 4 on the board, which is ridiculous. Speaking of havens, Baranth has 2 actions left. He'll build his 3rd haven for his first action. And Call will build his 4th with his final action. And then finally, remember, the assassin will want to get closer to her target. So I want to be here to receive her. So Baranth will spend his last action to command. Let's see. The mountain is going to limit us to only 1 range die each, which is great against her. So I'll bring both my red guys, and I think actually both my blue guys, because I've already got 1 range die for my tower, and if the blue guys survive, they fight harder. Alright, so that was a fabulous turn. The assassin's going to activate first. She needs to go closer to her target, which means she can only go here. Which means she gets to fight some skeletons. I hope they hurt her. That's her first activation, the bonus one she gained. She's rolling a blue and 2 whites. And sorry, I should say she left a tower behind on the capital. Alright, come on, skeletons, survive! Yes, one of them did! And by the way, if the Empire kills skeletons or Chaos defeats garrisons, they also go to their graveyard for 2 victory points for one of the factions. Okay, now she's attacking for purple, blue, red, orange, white. Wow. A little bit of everything, but come on, skeleton, I believe in you. I don't believe in you. Okay, so that was just a waste of my time giving her 2 victory points. I will. And then for her second activation, remember she has to go to her target as her primary thing, so she can't go to one of the less defended ones. And beautiful for me, she only gets to roll 1 range die because we're on the Highlands. I roll 1 for my tower. I get, beautiful, both. And she gets just a shield, so I don't hurt her, but I'm okay with that. And here's her little multicolor thing again. Oh wait, I'm dumb. I don't have 5 guys here. Of course I would have brought another Spear Singer. So here's all of my dice with the tower and wall bonus. Okay, let's see what the assassin does. 4 skulls, and oh no, a lightning bolt means 2 more skulls, so she's hitting me for 6. Now she has no defense, but still, I'd rather not die here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I've got 4 skulls to kill her off because she has no defense. And I've got 2 skulls. The lightning bolt does nothing for me since I can't cancel a shield. And I can use my once per combat ability to make this into a shield. So with her lightning bolt, she's still getting 3 damage through. But I'm definitely wiping her out. So I get 3 more victory points right here at the end. And I'll get rid of all of my basic guys, keep my 2 red guys I earned there. But hey, don't forget, I get to bring one of them back for free. Boom. All right, now we get to do production and then victory points. Let's skip production because we're getting a ton and just show you where the victory points would end up after the second chapter. So here's where we stand before we tally, and I will remind you I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, so don't think this game is like a cakewalk or anything. Oh, I forgot to move the Empress. I guess I would want her to come this way and then I could reinforce that place like crazy. And since the capital is full, she would have placed a garrison. Let's put it right there. So Empire gets 1, 2, 3, 4 for their garrisons. 5 for having a legion left. And then we're all represented in there. So that's 7, 9, 11 total. And then those units go back. So they jump up to 14. Much better. Chaos, meanwhile, did not get to put any new curses down. So they still only have the same 6. And they have no hordes left. And only blue units in their graveyard. So they get 8. So they jump to 17. Then red's got 4 havens plus his 1 bonus. So that's 9. So he's up to 22. And blue has 3 havens plus a bonus. So he's at 23. So we've established a pretty great foothold here halfway through a full 4-chapter game, although you could play 2 chapters and be done here, which is good for learning. But again, keep in mind we're on the easiest difficulty setting. We didn't use any of the red skull, hexes, and cards that make the game way more difficult. But that is Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor on Kickstarter now. If you'd like to see my review of the prototype, click on the link that just popped on screen. Good gaming, everybody, and we'll see you at the next stop.